In a world where most people watch movies and then forget about them, these brave heroes join forces to watch them again and then talk about them. Join them in their epic journey as they go back in time, a decade and beyond, to revisit and break down films from a vast array of genres. Do these movies hold up over time? Are they classics? Find out on Retro Movie Roundtable. Starring your hosts, Brian Fry, Chad Robinson, Dustin Melbardis, Lizzie Haynes, and Russell Guest. Coming now to headphones in your ears.
Welcome all you lords, ladies and knights to the Retro Movie Roundtable. Welcome to the show where we watch movies and then talk about them. I'm your host, Russell Guest, and joining me today is my good friend and co-host, Mr. Dustin Melbardis. How you doing, sir?
Good evening, Russell. I'm happy. We're rolling into the summer season.
All right. So from Texas, where you are, we're going to go right back to where I am here in the Pittsburgh, the Steel City, the city of bridges, coming to you, one of our most popular guests, one of our most frequented guests, Mr. DJ Bryant. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
He's back.
We are yeah. I'll let everybody know this is an emergency fill-in. So thank you, DJ. This is, when we're in trouble, we call our best. We bring in somebody on short notice, and so you helped us do Some Like It Hot, and we are covering another Marilyn Monroe, Billy Wilder effort, and I said, who do we need? I said, so you are now officially our Billy Wilder and Marilyn Monroe expert.
You call me anytime for Marilyn. I'm down.
Awesome.
Today's movie is a hot summer movie. Speaking of Some Like It Hot, what's the hottest you've ever been?
I don't remember the temperature, but I remember one summer when I was living in Atlanta, I got what was called the summertime flu. And that was the worst thing ever because coupled with the heat and humidity of Atlanta, having a fever was not pleasant. And the additional side effects of that were also miserable. So that was the worst. And that's probably like circa 2006.
So fever plus Atlanta. They call it Hot Atlanta. That sounds very hot.
Yeah.
Dustin, how about you? You've lived in Tennessee and in Texas, some hot places. What's the hottest you've ever been?
When I moved down here to Texas in 2011, we were in the middle of a very hot summer, but not a record-breaking summer, but with a number that was really impactful, which was 100 days of over 100 degrees. And I know it's been 15 years since then, but I think it was 100 days over 100 degrees in a row. And so I moved down during a scorcher. The thing is, coming from Tennessee, it's especially in East Tennessee where I'm from, the Smoky Mountains are a rainforest. It's like you have to swim to your car in the driveway, right? So it's much drier where I'm at here. So I actually welcomed that trade. It's nice to be able to walk into a business or walk into dinner and you're not already drenched in sweat because it's just so humid. But the people east of me in Houston have it way worse.
Ah, okay. Mine's going to pale in comparison to temperature-wise to your all's, because I grew up in West Virginia, which is where this occurs, but it was in the mid-90s, which probably sounds like child's play for both Georgia and for Texas, where you guys are from. But I was on a roof. I was working for Habitat for Humanity.
Uh-huh.
And rather than building a new house, we were renovating an existing structure and refurbishing it. So I had to remove all the shingles off the roof. And so I was sitting there with like a shovel-like device, peeling off, asphaltic shingles and stuff like that on a black tar paper and stuff like that. And I was working hard. I was taking pride. I was like, yeah, I'm going at this. I'm going at this. I'm going this. And then I had heat exhaustion. I got shaky. I got nauseous. I the people, the supervisors there, like brought me in like into the shade. There's no air conditioning around or whatever, doing the Gatorade thing. It's just like, I found out what it is to push it too hard. I was probably about 17 at the time, and I was sitting there going like, I'm like a roofer. I'm doing this thing. And I was like, all right, let's do this. And the line between, all right, let's do this, and you're not okay anymore. 90s. I don't know what I could do in Texas or Georgia. I'm a wimp, man. So the mid 90s apparently took me out.
My story about like the difference between just even in just this country, the sheer differences is I had a grad student mentor at the University of Tennessee who would wear blue jeans every day of the summer. And somebody else, not me, asked him, hey, why don't you ever wear shorts? because we're all outside all the time. And he goes, I'm from San Antonio. I'll wear shorts when it's hot.
Huh.
It's like training, like wearing weights when you run. I get
Yeah.
it. Now, DJ, what's the last movie you saw?
Last movie I saw, I'll give you two. So in theaters, it would be Wicked. And at home, it would be this one. I watched it twice preparing for this.
I need to see Wicked. I heard Mary watching it when I couldn't
Oof.
join at one point, and I heard some of it, but I want to see it, so I have to check that out.
One of my friends who is this like big burly motorcycle guy absolutely loves it. And specifically, like, one of the songs from it, he is all about. And I love just imagining this man just like singing the song in his motorcycle shop.
Yeah.
It is the best kind of thought I have ever.
Well, I like DJ's picture that he painted for us. Is that, at the machine shop, or they're pulling out an engine and there's show tunes going on.
Yeah.
At full blast.
Defying gravity.
Dustin, how about you? What's the last movie you saw?
Went a little artistic with this, and I will go ahead and tell our listeners, this isn't a recommendation. This is something that I had seen long ago, and I just got the itch to watch it again. It's from 1993. It's called The Cement Garden. Have either of you two heard of this?
No.
The Cement Garden is by Andrew Birkin, based on the novel by Ian McEwan. But it is it's a movie about a household falling apart from the point of view of children trying to keep it running without parental figures. So it's kind of got that. Some people like to just, the easy deference is like, oh, it's Lord of the Flies like, is that, oh, there's no authority figure. But the reason it's not a recommendation is because central to it is a pretty heavy theme of incest. And it keeps the drama high, and it keeps you kind of on the edge of your seat, because you're not like rooting for that, but you see it happening. And that's where it's like this. That's why I said it's more of an artistic viewing, not a full recommendation. But if you're into stuff that does make you maybe a little queasy, or make you like want to sort of the opposite of a fun, bright summer movie, is what I went with.
Wow. Yeah. My last movie that I saw was Captain Underpants, the movie. So,
A little different. Yeah.
A little different. One of the great things about having a kid is you can get back in touch with yourself about potty humor and all the things that made you laugh, about butts and farts and things like that. This is not highbrow humor, but it's fun to watch these kinds of potty humor things land. So Kevin Hart's one of the voice. Weird Al does the music at the end. I mean, fun is had. I mean, the books are much better. They put more stuff in the books for adults than they do in this. So this is truly for kids. But DJ, what movie are we going to cover today?
Well, we're going to talk about The 7-Year Itch.
This stars Marilyn Monroe and Tom Ewell. Released in 1955. Its budget is $1.8 million. I thought that might be a lot for the time. My inflation meter is off or whatever, because this also grosses a lot. It grosses $12 million domestically. It comes in the box office at number 11. It comes in behind I'll Cry Tomorrow and ahead of Land of the Pharaohs. The number one movie in 1955 is Disney's Lady and the Tramp. I did not realize Lady and the Tramp took the country by storm so much, but Dogs Eating Spaghetti really did it for everybody at that point. And the IMDb gives The 7-Year Itch a 7.1. The critics of Rotten Tomatoes like it a fair bit at 84%. The audience is a little cooler at 76%. It was a Golden Globe winner for Best Actor for Motion Picture Comedy or Musical for Tom Ewell. It is a BAFTA winner for Best Foreign Actress for Marilyn Monroe, because it's British, that's foreign. And Directors Guild of America Award nominee for Outstanding Directorial Achievement, and Writers Guild of America Award for Billy Wilder and George Ackroyd. And Tom Ewell won the 1953 Tony Award actor for the drama The 7-Year Itch role on stage. So this is a staged movie. So you mentioned Wicked earlier there, DJ. This too is a stage adaptation, not a musical, but also another big distinction it carries is the AFI. The AFI gives this, on the top 100 laughs of all time, number 51 on the comedies movies of all time. So, DJ, had you seen The 7-Year Itch before? I think you had, because you told us to watch it before.
Yeah, I had probably, and I'm going to answer one of your follow-up questions. I probably saw it about like 20 years ago. So this was me re-exploring it again.
Did watching it again scratch a 20-year itch? Did you like coming back to it?
I was talking about those with Dustin before. Like I had to watch it 2 times preparing for this, and the first time I found it to be very cringe. Again, watching it. The second time, I had to go into it and just like completely suspend any kind of preconception I had of it and just try to experience it again from like just a non-biased point of view. I definitely appreciated it more the second time. Like I found more to like about it doing that kind of thought experiment. So yeah, it's an interesting film. Like there's a lot to talk about here, and we'll get into it. But yeah, there's a lot of baggage to unpack. The way the humor is portrayed, it's very reserved, and you can tell that they didn't get to go as far as they wanted to with it. But it's still there in like a suggestive kind of way. So if you can read into it and kind of see past limitations, it's there.
Nice. Now, Dustin, how about you? Had you seen The 7-Year Itch before?
No, all the Billy Wilder stuff, all the stuff that we've been very lucky to cover, including Marilyn Monroe's filmography over the last 3 years. This is all stuff that's new to me. It's why you brought me on the show. You said, you like old movies? I said, well, I'll watch them. So I did. And I watched this one twice in 2 days. I did not need a second viewing because I needed to really analyze and criticize some of the filmography decisions. I watched it a second time because I had a blast. I thought this was fun. It's meant to be fun, and it was fun. Yet me and DJ were talking pre-record about some of the things that you see and some of the things that might not hold up. But I think I'd never mentioned it quite this way, but it made sense to me in the moment, is that sometimes you don't have just an on and off switch with jumping 70 years or in the past. It's not something where you compartmentalize just hard with like a knife. Sometimes it's just adjusting a dial. So, we talk about things that are, the male fantasy. You talk about things that are about infidelity. You talk about vices, having to deal with smoking and drinking, all this stuff from the time. You think about the office structure with your women secretaries. They have a very particular role. The men have a particular role. All this stuff from the past is like, once you adjust the dial, it takes 1 second and like, boom, you're there. And that's where I was, is that I was able to adjust right away. I really liked that I was able to kind of dive in. And the thing that's great about the show is that now we can dive into the things that perhaps did not age that well, or that certainly did not age that well. And it'll be part of a discussion, and it doesn't have to impact a shock value or a cringe value of, oh my gosh, am I really watching this? Is that then you can use that to discuss it with your friends.
Yeah, I think to both of your points, because there's complexity and some things have changed since this was made. I think I was able to put my hat on, and knowing that this is the people who made Some Like It Hot. I put the right hat on. My 1950s hat was on. This is a silly time, and you're right. There's a lot of bad behavior and a lot of things that you sit there and you wouldn't condone now that may not be likable, but you just strap on for the ride. Now, the other thing that I really got to say is this is probably the most Marilyn I've seen thus far. So if you want to see the icon of Marilyn Monroe in action, this is even better than Some Like It Hot. She's more center stage on this one. So, you can, if you want to know what the allure was or what, she was all about. I mean, there's no movie that's more Marilyn than here. And so like, James Dean, Marilyn Monroe, some of these people, Jimi Hendrix, etc. Some of these people who are with us for a short period of time leave a great deal of impression on us. And I think this is just from a cultural standpoint, you get to appreciate her. So, and then the other thing, I'm shocked you didn't mention, Dustin, you tend to like stage conversions, movies that are plays going to this big screen.
I do tend to like them. There's a reason for the tendency, is that when you see it, and if you know it, it's not like I need to know it ahead of time. When you notice that the 55 minutes right in the middle of the movie is all happening in one room on one night, it's pretty clear, right? You didn't have to read about it to learn, but it is definitely part of why I enjoyed this. And that's also something that other critics might say that takes away, is that if you hold so dearly to it's like an act structure that all happens in one place, or like the intimacy of happening just in one room, that you limit yourself as far as like theatrically for a motion picture with all of the ability to go elsewhere. For me, I do like the idea that we have constraints, and I like the idea that like we play within rules, and movies that are based on plays or that happen in a small setting. When you are creative with being within those constraints, it's like you're playing with the rules set for you, whether that's societal rules, whether that's a board game rule. Is that playing within constraints? I think is a an endeavor that like shows creativity.
See,
I agree.
I will second that, because also I feel I'm going to relate this to Tim Burton's Batman with Selena Kyle. We see a large part of that film in particular in Selena Kyle's apartment. And because of that, you can kind of study that apartment and that space and relate it to her psychology and her persona in terms of what spaces are shown and what spaces are not. And this movie also is very similar, because there is, we'll talk about this later, but there is a staircase to nowhere.
Yeah.
And there's some kind of anomalies in this apartment that don't quite make sense as far as we recognize spaces now.
Yeah, air conditioning being present
Yeah.
matter to 99% of movies. And you might say that's part of the plot point, seems kind of flimsy. But once you've just been through this romp, you're like, it makes sense. It all just things that are simple or slice of life, things that are just part of your regular everyday living, mattering to characters who are supposed to seem real. Then yes, that's stuff matters to us. That's so small. That's not movie worthy. But you put it in a movie like this, and hey, makes sense. And the staircase to nowhere matters in this.
Have your power go out for a day or two in the summer. It matters. It matters a lot. I mean, I've been walking around New York. My parents would sometimes go up there to catch a play or something like that. And when I was a kid, and I remember thinking, it was hot before I came to New York, but because there's no trees, et cetera, all the concrete, it's hot. And so, I mean, it's a different kind of hot. Like you're just breathing in like exhaust, and like there's a congestion. Like there's this like thick feeling. It's almost like somebody's just like put a coat on you or something like that when you don't want one. And you have like this feeling of like, I just want out of this. So I actually kind of, having been to New York, feel that heat that comes in this and that comes on here. But I had fun with this. I want to let everybody know we are going to spoil this movie completely. So we will be back after these messages. You don't want to spoil it. It's a fun movie. We'll be back after these messages.
Welcome to the All 80s Movies Podcast.
I'm Bill.
And I'm Jason. And this is the podcast where we talk about the blockbusters, the flops, and everything in between from one of the freshest decades for movies, the 1980s. So whether you're a brain, a jock, a valley girl, or a Jedi, we've got some 80s classics for you.
Do these movies stand the test of time? Are we discovering something new? Is there an 80s movie we're finally watching for the first time?
Join us each week as we dive into the cinematic nostalgia that inspired and influenced a generation. From the hits to the cult classics, we'll discuss our earliest memories, favorite scenes, fun facts, and our not-so-favorite movie moments too.
It's the All 80s Movies Podcast, now available on all major streaming platforms. Please subscribe and happy listening.
Okay, we are back, and this is your final warning. There will be spoilers that lie ahead. Dustin, for those who haven't seen 7-Year Itch since 1955, do you want to refresh people's memories?
Summer has come to the island of Manhattan, and all the businessmen of New York send their wives and children to the country to escape the heat and focus on work, work, work. That is, when they aren't chasing tail and indulging in vice. None of that for Richard Sherman, who's on his best behavior eating vegetarian and drinking soda pop, till the girl walks in to sublet the upstairs apartment. What a looker, and how. His wild imagination leads him to believe that, against his best intentions, he will end up seducing her and ruining his marriage. The girl, meanwhile, has nothing but the most naive and kindest of intentions, needing nothing more than air conditioning, champagne with potato chips, and the company of a married man. the safest type of man because they won't ask you to marry them. After a failed quote-unquote terrorizing advance on the seat of the piano, Richard begs the girl to leave for the night, but the next day succumbs to guilt, grief, and greater gaffes, learning from a psychologist named Dr. Brewbreaker about the phenomenon called the 7-year itch. That night, an innocent date to the movies with an innocent kiss to test the validity of Dazzledent is capped with an evening back at home downstairs in his apartment, where the girl is desperate to sleep in preparations for her big acting day tomorrow. But Richard is caught up yet again in a fantasy in which his wife comes home and shoots him dead for his marital transgressions. Overwhelmed with fear and panic, he knocks Tom Mackenzie out cold, then rushes to save his marriage, though it was only ever in danger in his mind.
All right. So this movie is tiptoeing the line for where the line is in 1955. I think we'll go right into this one. Things have changed. Comedy, if you go too far, can really push people's buttons the wrong way. And, that line changes greatly depending on when the movie is made and when it's written. And here we are, and we're still in the Hays Code. 1955, I think you mentioned that it is a conservative time, DJ, and that is a fair thing to say with what you are allowed to do. Billy Wilder, who wrote this, was frustrated. He wanted to push things further. He wanted to do things more. Having not seen the stage play, I don't know if the stage play can get away with being more risque than this, but this movie has to deal with constraints. And I think it's one of the interesting things, and why I go to this right away is because you just mentioned, Dustin, you appreciated the creativity within the constraints. I could see somebody picking this up and saying an episode of 2.5 Men plays the same game of tiptoeing around debauchery and, like sleeping around and just, behaving badly. And it pushes it so much farther than this can. I could see somebody coming in and saying that. On the other hand, when I watch a movie, you kind of put that hat on it and I quickly land in that world. And it doesn't usually take me too long, whether it's a period piece history or this. But DJ, it sounded like with the three of us, you had to take that second pass upon returning to it. That was a harder break for you to make coming in. Talk about those differences. Let's go ahead and get some of the obvious things out of the way. It's not 1955 anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's not 1955. So for me, like, obviously we start with the Native American, the indigenous people scene early on, which is problematic. It's wild because it's problematic in the sense of what it is, but it's also of the times and that it is a land proclamation in a sense. Like they are saying like this, a land acknowledgement. This land comes from these people and now these people are here now. But it's all mostly like white actors, playing these people of color. So there's that to kind of absorb like immediately in the film, which is an assault to modern senses, I feel. And then there's also just this wicked kind of like male paranoia, the male gaze, the male kind of fantasy on an extreme. That's just like, this man is like self-obsessed so much. And like, get over yourself, dude. Like, these women are not that into you. Like, and as a gay man, I often think of this, like, I feel like I'm perceived as a threat in a space sometimes. It's like, dude, I don't care what you look like. I don't really care. Like, I'm not out to get you. My penis isn't going to jump out and like co-opt you into the gay life. Like, that's not how this works. But it's like, it's so weird. But because it's so weird and because it's so problematic, it's also funny in a lot of ways. It is hilarious. And I had to get over that, my kind of inability to really understand this character, because I'm just like, just get over yourself, dude. It's not that bad. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
Is there any more American anything that has stood the test of time than white men thinking about themselves and themselves only?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also one of the things I do like about it, because like, you often see the women portrayed as the hysterical character. And in this case, we see the male hysteria, which I love as a flip side of that coin.
I think maybe Wilder's writing is amping it up. This isn't necessarily a regular 1950s dude. It's holding a mirror back to yourself. And as science fiction or comedy can do, you get to take a step back from reality, and through the art of exaggeration, you can point your finger at something that's a not too nice thing. That was a real thing, like send your family out and have a girl on the side kind of thing. I don't think Wilder's celebrating that. The character itself is doing that. But I'll tell you right now, when we had to find somebody to put on the show quickly, I checked with Chad real quick. It was like, hey, did you see 7 Year Itch? And he said, it's a miserable film. I absolutely, like, it's really disgusting. And like you said, DJ, that cringe hit our co-host Chad and just said, like, he's like, it's 90 minutes of a guy trying to cheat on his wife. And I think Wilder's not saying, yes, do this, but I think it's a look at how pathetic this is. Look at this neurotic character. Is this really? Do you want to be this guy? Does this guy even want to be this guy? By the end,
I can kind of see what Chad is getting at, because I share something only similar with him, which is that if a movie, you know this about me, all the guys know about this, is that if a movie tries to put too much of a crux on a character's alcoholism being the only thing that's funny about them or the only thing that explains them, then part of my brain will shut off. Now, generally, I won't go with like, this movie was miserable, but this is a big deal, is that this male fantasy into the culture that established with that. I mean, we have to call it a cute little scene, because if we call it anything more than that, about the brown-faced actors playing the tribe on Manhattan sending their women away, we don't want that for very long. Luckily, it's just a gag. But we don't want that for very long, and luckily we don't get it for very long. It just sets the stage that this is just how men are. That is something that I really enjoy about. It's not Billy Wilder saying this is something that should be championed. He's saying this is the world that exists. And whether it's 1 degree away from the real world or 5 degrees away from the real world in terms of exaggeration or imagination, is that this is almost equivalent to a horror movie into how close is it to real. Imagine sitting next to your wife or sitting next to your husband in 1958, or sorry, I get 55, whatever.
55, yeah.
Imagine, and there's the horror of the monster makes the movie not so scary. The horror of the serial killer who's your neighbor, that makes it scarier. And so what this movie does is it puts the idea that every man is like this. Every husband is like this. They're all holding it back. It's deep within them, and it's been there the whole time. And when he sends you away, do you need to be thinking about him? Because you know what he's thinking about. Whether that's true or not, which today there are parts of this country where it still is true, and there's parts where it's just merely exaggeration. And what's worse is in modern dating culture and modern relationships is just the heightened sense of my partner is always out to get me or get over on me, especially in new relationships and with cell phones. That the infidelity it really does push like the comfort level of a lot of people. But it's not about a guy who's really out there, pinching bottoms in the office. This guy has these neuroses. This guy in Richard Sherman is described by our like narrator. We get like a little bit of, this is one of these stories kind of things. The first watch, he's like, this is a guy with a real active imagination. If you're not paying attention, you don't realize the narrator's setting you up for just the very particular kind of guy this is. And I think what makes it so funny, the reason he was imported from the stage show to the movie, is because this kind of hysterical character, this kind of neurotic character, the Felix of The Odd Couple, who is front and center, is really what makes this shine. And you laughed, Russell. Is that it is his portrayal of like this kind of person, like what really like as a comedy guy, you're the comedy guy. Is this like what stands out for you in the way you view comedies?
I think it's twofold. I'm actually going to kick this one to DJ, but I think I mentioned earlier, you get to take Marilyn, this cultural icon, and to get to appreciate her. There will be nothing more Marilyn than this performance, I'm pretty sure, having not seen all of it. So if you want the most Marilyn, this is the most Marilyn for your money. And then on top of that, you're right. Tom Ewell is not a name I had heard before, but I didn't want a bigger name necessarily right in his place, because I got glimpses of all these different things like Family Guy and like I'm just having this imagine this kind of random thing, and then like it goes and does this cutscene. I did not expect that for 1955. I did not expect him to have these, imagining, oh, I'm going to hit on her kind of thing, and then you go back and then none of that actually happened. It is a step into a very nervous, anxious, self-absorbed, like I said, some of it's fantasy, some of it's denial, and some of it's a conscious coming in, and all these complex things that are going on. And actually, that's really good writing, because he is feeling all of that at one time, and it's done so in a funny way.
I really like what you said about, you related it to Family Guy and the idea of the non sequitur humor, because that's something that of our generation, I feel like we're more used to, like these kind of like random like thoughts or ideas, and it's funny. It's fully realized now. Like we get it. We can understand it. In this film though, it's still early on. And so like they're still feeling it out. And, I also think about this is like pre-1960, so it's pre the nuclear arms race. So pre kind of like, we're all going to die hysteria. Like you see the flash, you got to duck and cover, get under your desk. It's all over pretty quickly. So thinking about all these things, like it's a very interesting kind of lineage of this particular strain of humor, because it hasn't quite fully manifested yet that it's the Family Guy kind of non sequitur, and it needs ultimately the 1960s, the death and disaster of it all, to really fully become just completely farcical and just self-lampooning of itself, and to have all these other random things that happen, like whether Stewie's murdering Bryant or other random things that you would find in Family Guy. So I really appreciate your kind of take on that.
It's also it's a clever way to insert more gags. It's a writer's wink that we thought this was funny, but we couldn't get it in. And then luckily, the entire premise of this character is that his imagination gets the best of him, and it's so part of the rest of the characterization of him in the movie. But there was only one other TV show I ever saw that did this well. Animation lends itself to this because you can draw whatever you want. But as far as your character needs to have either an active imagination, or it needs to be almost a cartoonish writing of a character. I think the TV show Scrubs did this incredibly. The JD character being able to come up with a fantasy and then cut away to it and then cut back. I'm sure dozens of other shows have done it well, and I wonder if some of our highly successful TV shows of the last 20 years have capitalized on it. So I know Scrubs that's a long time ago now. It's not a modern.
We saw this in 9 to 5 with the fantasy scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's not a full like Family Guy like quick non sequitur, but like you get this dramatic break in the narrative of a film to indulge in these kind of farcical realizations of something.
Yeah, and their reality is totally gone. The whole movie, like there is not literally a subway line full of people like chasing, hey, there's a woman, and they chase her. Like it's ridiculous laying it on, and that's the real world. And then his mind is only further,
I tried to dig in the IMDb. I could not tell if like the modern retelling of the beautiful squaw walking by and all of the hunters like following her. Yeah. I don't know if it was the same actor, like or the same actress.
Would have been funny.
It would have been funny, and like it was written well. It and in time, just right at the very beginning, makes total sense.
Yeah. The other thing that I think we touched on is this is the beginning of Marilyn Monroe's superstardom phase. So for the next 4 or 5 years, she's totally cemented her status as the icon that we know her here in the 50s. It finishes up maybe towards Some Like It Hot, and she has a decline. We talked about it, and I urge you, if you're enjoying this episode, please go check out DJ, Dustin, and I, same trio, talk about Some Like It Hot. also an amazing movie. But in it, Marilyn is under a lot of personal stress that is very sad. There's behind the laughter and behind the bright smile, there's clearly she met her demise at a much too young age, and so her personal decline kicks in. This is the rise, and then so this is the other end of the spectrum. So we've come at it backwards, and it is really interesting to see. Some people, I think, might even say that she's a temptress and she's just trying to be out there. But I think you mentioned it earlier, Dustin. She's not trying to cause trouble. There's a sweetness, I guess, to the character. DJ, you help me out here. Why is Marilyn Monroe such an icon?
Obviously, at the time during the filming of this movie, she's married to Joe DiMaggio, and he's actually on set for the iconic scene about the subway blowing the dress up. And they're filming this in New York City, and there's like over 1,000 people watching it at the time, and they're just like all catcalling her and just like giving all this attention to her. And she's also struggling with filming this. I think it took like 40 takes to get it. And even then, they didn't get it in the live action, like on site kind of set. They had to go to a soundstage to actually fully get it. But allegedly, this is what set up the kind of ending of that marriage. And you hear from her fellow co-stars in this that she was a very sad person at this time and that she was dealing with a lot. But at the same time, you see her in this film and she does not show that at all. Like, she is like this sweet, innocent, lovable character that is sexy. She's fun. And you think she's a star, and you see it in the way she can command the camera. Just the glances that she gives, the wardrobe, the costuming, it is absolutely stunning. And it's so, it's wonderful and sad to see her in this because you know what's going to happen, or at least we do now, eventually.
I think that there's something special. The 50s is a very glamorous, formal time, and this setting is not glamorous. And we see a mundane, cramped apartment. It's a very realistic apartment. We see so many movies with way too nice New York apartments. This is realistic. This is what somebody in New York would actually be living in at his income level. And that they show the not so glamorous side of, being in New York as just a regular dude. And here we have a glamorous figure being dropped into it. She'll probably go on to become even bigger in the movie. Like, her character, she's already being photographed. She's being hailed as a model, but we see this moment before she has risen to true stardom, and she's out of place. He cricks his neck, just like, what? Yeah. Like, as she walks by, and that is a physical manifestation of, because this movie has set such a drab surrounding, or not drab, but just very normal. She's larger than life, and it shows in the movie too.
Yeah.
I think it probably would have been too easy to do, or I guess I should say it would have been very easy to do, is to have every single male character in the movie like crack their neck the way that he does as she goes up the stairs. But DJ, you nailed it. In like, with today's world, with the phones in our pockets, there are millions and millions of people with millions of followers who are beautiful men, beautiful women, showing off themselves, showing off their bodies. They don't have to be models. You don't need to be a model anymore. You just need to have Instagram. And there's a lot of beauty in the world that you get to see from anywhere in the world. And all of that doesn't compare to the way that they shoot Marilyn Monroe in 1954 and 1955 for this movie. It's just different. And and you can't explain it because it's not as, like, the photos and the quality is not as high def as we are now. And the fitness standards aren't quite the same. People will go back and talk about Marilyn Monroe's actual measurements compared to the way that we personify beauty in the 90s, and then we personify beauty in the 2000s and then today. or just whether it's bust or whether it's hips and waist, all that stuff it doesn't matter. When she's on screen, it's like tractor beam. Like you're right. When you say command the camera, it happens. And like I'm taking notes while I watch a movie, whether it's the first time or the second time for this show. And there's times where it's sort of like you stop. Wow, this is it's like you're watching Da Vinci paint. Just captured beauty in a way that like is almost undescribable. A fridge magnet with Marilyn Monroe's picture on it doesn't capture it.
And she's genuinely funny. Like
she is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
So that's the other thing. She makes these movies work. Now,
Yeah.
I will admit she sounds like she might have been a little bit frustrating to deal with. She is battling depression. She has a hard time remembering her lines. She has to shoot some of these scenes, as you mentioned, DJ 30, 40 times. And you got to be on your toes. As like Ewell's really got to be patient. And the directors, I think Billy Wilder's a bit of a big character himself as you read the things that he says in general. I think we cover some of that and Some Like It Hot as well. She does get it right when it's right. Billy Wilder got the right take. Even if it took 40 takes, it's perfect because the humor is there. The charisma is there. This doesn't work. Like if you just plug in another beautiful person from the time, it doesn't mean it's not just blank beautiful person who has no talent. It's not just insert that person there. The charisma must also be there for this to work. So I'd said it gets by on the back of Tom Ewell. He delivers a lot of the lines. Obviously, he is narrating directly to the audience. I mean, it does get on. This also doesn't work either, unless, or at least it's not number 51 on the laughs chart. It's not. We're not talking about this movie today without her.
You mentioned that she's funny, and she is. DJ, do you feel like with female actors, with women actors, to be funny, I don't feel like they have to be ultra clever or they don't have to be sarcastic. I think in modernity, with like modern stand-ups, you expect a biting nature. You expect things to be like very sarcastic or very in your face. I'm not even going to mention any names because it seems like it takes away from their ability. And so I'm not going to mention any modern women comics. But with Marilyn Monroe, I want to give credit to the writing, but I also got to give credit to the delivery. Is it just like this bubbly naivete that she's nailing, or is there more to it? Because I felt like there was more to it. I just can't put words to it.
There is 100% more to it, at least I think. And if we're going to talk about this, I'll go into it now because I don't know if this will work elsewhere, but I mean, ultimately, she is a protagonist of this film. She does not have a name as a proper character that you would typically give someone, but in the end, it's because of her that the relationship is saved between our quote unquote main character and his wife. That she convinces him to go back to her, and that she gives him the permission to do that. And in many ways, I'm kind of reminded of Titanic. And how Jack saves Kate. He removes her from this trophy wife life and gives her the permission to be a kind of an actualized, self-realized individual in much the same way that Marilyn does this for our main character here in this film. And that's partially the brilliance of writing. That's also partially the brilliance of Marilyn Monroe, because I think you could easily put this as she's a harlot and she's just out to steal some AC from a guy and take advantage of him, or all these other things, like manipulative, basically. But it doesn't come off that way. Like, she is this funny, hilarious, self-realized individual that we just can't stop watching because she is so magnetic.
Again, she had problems with showing up on time. Lots of takes. There were a lot of overages in this. 1.8 million, I did read, is a lot to make a movie, a comedy at this time. You know what, though? The movie returned. It was the number 11 movie on the box office that year. Made 12 times the money back. And that's because of her. So you know, you take the bad with the good, and the good's really good. So that's a bad that you take for sure. So,
I had
more bittersweet moments from Marilyn Monroe, actress Carolyn Jones, who's the woman who plays Nurse Finch, who's that scene's hilarious too in a small dose. But she said, talking to Marilyn off stage, she was very nice, but she was a sad lady. When she was off stage, she was dreadfully insecure and frightened about losing her looks. It was an all-consuming fear, and we see this a lot. When you're Mr. Popular, when you had all the big hit songs, or when you're the athlete, the weight of the world is on your shoulders. And in her case, she did define beauty for her era, and it was a heavy crown to wear. And you can see the seeds, like you said, DJ. Reading these things, you're sitting there going like, "Oh, that's sad," but it's tragic, knowing where it's going. So there's bittersweet moments in studying this because you don't want it to happen. Because more than ever, I like Marilyn, especially in this movie and watching what she does here.
There's a somewhat sad recounting in her diaries where I think she's at lunch in public with a friend. She's incognito, and she's kind of relating to them, and she asks him, "Do you want to see her?" Meaning the Marilyn that we know. After we've all known that, and she takes off her kind of her head wrap and her sunglasses, and she goes out and just kind of presents herself as Marilyn, and all these people just start flocking to her, like instantly recognizing her. And it was in that moment that I realized that, like, there are two people here. There is the tortured Marilyn that no one knows, and then there's the Marilyn that everyone knows, almost to the point that it's killing her. And obviously eventually does too. And it's the sad duplicity of a persona, basically, like of a celebrity being overexposed, and not having the ability to kind of take care of themselves and to find solace in people who understand them and will not kind of take advantage of them because they are just a megastar.
Yeah. To just exist. To just
exist.
Even just you describing the way that she said, "Do you want to see her?" And that she could, in a moment, just change the atmosphere of this cafe. I don't know what she did. I don't know what she looked like. I don't know what she was wearing, but I can picture it. And I know that in the time, it would have been like a flock, like pigeons around a loaf of bread on the ground. Just, oh my gosh, changing the entire landscape of what you're around because you're so big or so impactful. And that is where that weight, that we don't see that on screen. Thank goodness. Mm-hmm. And unless you are reading her diaries or reading like memoirs about it or biographies, you don't know that. And now that we've brought it up, we have thousands of celebrities, and just to whatever degree, they're all dealing with that same thing to a degree.
I think it's interesting you bring up that this was played up for a publicity stunt, and it also led to trouble with her marriage. I mean, they put up a 52-foot high cutout of Marilyn Monroe with the breasts in Times Square. Like, I mean, Marilyn was a big deal, to say the least. And on the other hand, it wasn't just this led to the divorce. It's, DiMaggio, who I will never look at the same way after reading this again, was furious about the filming scene, incredibly insecure, and blows up that, she's putting herself out there. I mean, you have to know this. You've married Marilyn Monroe, or you're with Marilyn Monroe. I mean, it's just, come on. I mean, this comes with the territory. You must be able to accept this. You will be second fiddle, and that's you being an amazing baseball player. But she came back with a bunch of bruises and stuff that the makeup department had to hide. He beat her after this. And 3 weeks later, she ended up going for the divorce. So, as you mentioned, it seems so glamorous. On the other hand, it's her world's caving in. So I could talk for 90 minutes on Marilyn, but like you said, I do want to give credit to Tom Ewell. Offered or considered to go to Jimmy Stewart, Gary Cooper, William Holden, after seeing an early Walter Matthau, who, Billy Wilder, even thought he found his leading man with Walter Matthau. He was unwilling to take a risk on a newcomer, and that Wilder thought his next sights on the actor would be on the Broadway play for Ewell. Ewell did not think he had a shot to get this. He had played the role 730 times on Broadway.
Wow.
He had won a Tony Award for his troubles. Ewell said he never thought he would get the part. He made vacation plans to go to Martha's Vineyard with his family and stuff like that, saying, I just had no conception that I could make it over the names that I had just mentioned. And yet, he was selected over some very talented people. Gary Cooper's, I think he would be good in this, possibly. I think, Jimmy Stewart could be funny in this. Walter Matthau, I'm having a little hard time seeing. Maybe he could put himself there, depending, maybe wherever Walter Matthau is at that point, maybe. My point is, I'm saying no to a lot of those big guys.
I think he's perfect. Like, we hear more about this character as the movie goes on. He's this sweet, caring kind of guy. He's unassuming in a way. And I think he plays that very well. He also plays the paranoia and the hysteria very well as well. Like, it's hilarious, his kind of delusions, and just watching him kind of play them out on screen.
I'm going to ask
Dustin, I see you laughing. I want to know what you think as well.
Well, I think what you have to do is, because in a theater performance, you have to know that most people don't talk to themselves out loud in their everyday life. But in a theater, you have to. Like, that's how you communicate what your character's thinking. And in movies, you can, there might be voiceover to do it, but I'm so glad that our narration voiceover kind of dissipates, and we get to see Richard Sherman talking out loud about his imagination, talking out loud about how things are going to crumble, about how his life is over. All of this stuff is so great, but you have to be okay with it. If you aren't ready to click that dial a bit, you might say, well, is it flat that it's only happens in one room across 2 nights? Or is the sight gag of carrying a paddle around, is that going to do it for me? Or the representing men as dogs, as every man in this, his boss is shown to be that way. In a way, even the psychiatrist is shown to be that way. Who wrote the phenomenon about the 7-year itch? By the way,
I wanted more psychiatrist. He was good.
Brubaker, yeah, he was good. All of this is you get dialogue, and you get meaningful dialogue that isn't just between Richard Sherman and the girl, but I think the movie shines when he's talking out loud to himself.
Yes,
and sometimes it is all right, Dr. Hancock, I really don't be mad at me. I really need this smoke. And then 2 minutes later, all right, Dr. Berg, I need this drink too. That's definitely so stage show. But it's when he's really agonizing over what he has done. Wilder's constructed this world where men are dogs, or men are pigs, or men are bad in this way, to a degree, as much as you want to believe it or not. And he's supposed to be breaking that mold, and he's showing you how hard it is. It's so
not me.
Real.
No, sirree.
Not for me. No, yeah, this is not going to be me. And he just falls into the trap over and over again. And it's more so than just the comic, because I did find myself smiling and laughing, even on the second watch. Is that if you know that you're going to be solo on screen, or that you're going to be carrying the performance as far as what the audience needs to know about your character, you got to be up for it. And if you've done the performance over 700 times, there's nobody better for the role. And I think I heard you say William Holden, yeah, sure, attractive, handsome guy, but can he be neurotic like this? Who mentioned 2.5 Men earlier? Was that you, Russell?
I did, yes.
Okay. The idea is we are okay with accepting Charlie Sheen as kind of the no-good dog of a man. We're okay with that. That's his master status. That's what he is. This world that Billy Wilder has created is all the men you see have this hidden status, and how they handle it, or whether or not it's true. I didn't bring him up yet because he does feature in my superlatives, but the super, I think it's Mr. Krahalik.
Yes.
Representing the real down dirty, like, hey, that is so good to juxtapose with, oh, this guy is struggling with the idea that he's possibly having these thoughts, and then there's this other dude right next to him, just snapping his suspenders. I got that date with that woman, with the
I know
big
what's going on here. Let me help you out.
Oh my gosh, what does he say? Oh, I just want to die. Like he can't believe that he's interfered with this other man's game. All of that is masterful. And so I think there have been times on this show, Russell, where we cover a comedy, and I feel like, aside from the jokes, there's not that much to talk about. This movie is so ripe with so many things, culturally and just stylistically. It was a real treasure trove.
Again, it's a Billy Wilder. There's depth and there's writing and all. There's funny, but there's also all this other great stuff beyond it. I'm going to ask a different question. So in the play, if you do a comparison, many lines from the scenes were cut and rewritten because they were just too insensitive for the times. Yeah, this led to a lot of plot changes. This really frustrated Wilder. And in the play, the girl and Sherman have sex in the movie. It's reduced to just suggestion or possibility or ambiguity. I don't know how depending on how I want to know how you take it, but also the girl and he kiss 3 times on screen, like while at the piano, once on the terrace, and at the movie theater before he goes and takes his son's paddle to him. But in the 1970s, Wilder called the movie a nothing picture because the picture that he wanted to do later in the 70s, when things were very different, would have been very different. Unless the husband is left alone in New York, he said, while a wife and the kids are away for the summer and has an affair with that girl, there's nothing. And you couldn't do it in those days. I was just so straitjacketed. It didn't come off one bit. Nothing I could say about it except for I had to make it. I did the best I could. I wish I had the property now here in the 70s. So I'm going to ask you, DJ, do we like Sherman better if he doesn't, or if it's just a peck on the cheek, or like, do we like him better, or do we want the play version where he goes all the way with the girl? It's a question of, you're going to dislike this character more if you have more writing freedom. Which is better? If you're remaking this movie now, and by the way, they considered remaking this in the 1980s with Al Pacino of all people and Melanie Griffith. I just can't picture that at all. It didn't happen, and perhaps for the best. I'm not sure that if you're going to redo it, I'm not sure that's not the cast to do it with. But do you like it better? Do you like this 55 version that takes the kid gloves and, washes it up a little bit, doesn't go full tilt?
Well, what I wish is I had a crystal ball and I could see the version of this that Billy Wilder would have done had he did not have censorship. Mm-hmm. We don't have that, though.
If you can catch a play performance, I don't know if it's going to be a revival anytime soon.
Yeah.
Maybe the play might be the best thing to check out.
But I do appreciate this version because I do think that even with its constraints, there still is a magic here that is still working on a level. Again, giving all of my early kind of cringiness to it, kind of holding that back. Like I said, I do think that there is the uniqueness here is that, again, Marilyn is not portrayed, her character is not portrayed, the girl is not portrayed as the kind of the homewrecker or the villain here, which I think you would typically find. And then ultimately she is the savior of Richard's character. And I think that's a very unique take. Again, I haven't seen the stage version. I don't know how that one plays versus this. But that, to me, that is the novelty here, and that we can kind of, we can appreciate both characters and neither one is the enemy in the end, as well as we have an expanded notion of what a marriage or a relationship can be between people, whether you are actually married to them or whether they are a quote unquote friend who you just play chopsticks with at the piano
I love
and
that.
maybe
Reoccurring.
knock over in the end.
He made me play chopsticks.
I like we came here from the idea that he was looking back on it, 15 years later in the 70s. He had been really critical about like the censorship as to what he had wanted to do and what it ended up being. We talked about our co-host and the idea of like just the idea of infidelity is different than actual like sexual intercourse. Obviously, both are things that some people would be so uncomfortable with. I think the movie version where we just have, I guess you could say innocent kisses, but like I've had, when I was married, I had other, friends who I like, we held hands across the street or like linked arms, or, you might have a friend with their head fall asleep on yours, like in the cab ride home. Like there's intimacy that you can share with your close friends that it might even include, a kiss on the lips. That being said, this movie had to be very careful with it. And it's so weird that I'm taking the stance, but its widespread appeal and its ability to like be seen as like is innocent, it could not have gone any further than what it did. It could not have. It could, but if the stage version was successful, it's because people that go to see stage shows are different than people that go to see movies.
It's true.
That's it. You can get away with more, or the extent of uncomfortableness for the theater production than you can for the widespread, audience appeal. So in this case, sorry, Billy, I'm actually siding with the censors, or at least I'm siding with the producers that they were right on this one. Is that's what you needed. That being said, if it was made 15 years later, you might have been able to get away with it. But I just watched a movie, Keanu Reeves, 2015, before John Wick, called Knock Knock. What we have, this is actually one of Ana de Armas's first roles. It's a horror movie, but the crux of it is infidelity. The breadth of how far it can swing has to do with, well, did he have sex with this girl or not? And if your audience is thinking about like which side of the fence they're on because of the sex or not, then they're not able to enjoy the gags and the humor and the likeness of it. A kiss on the cheek and your wife is very lucky to have someone as sensitive like you. That's the charm. And I think true to life, sex takes the charm out of a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So Billy's edging us, basically, the whole movie. It's an hour and 45 minutes of edging.
And what we're learning is that as an audience and as a people, we like to be edged more than we would like to say out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
amen.
My head goes to a movie hall pass that the Farrelly brothers do, where you can do anything you want, and infidelity is the subject matter of that movie. And it's a very different movie. And Billy might have wanted to make a hall pass movie. Maybe he did. Maybe the play is a step towards hall pass. I'm glad we got the Marilyn 55 cleaned up version. I'm glad we got the PG version. It's funny within the constraints and the times that it's in. Marilyn and Tom Ewell are more likable at where they left it, I think. And I might also still want the newer
remake.
The newer remake. I don't know who I want to put in there right away. And I don't expect anywhere close to the success that this is. And that's one of those remakes. This is one of those rare times where I'm saying, let's look at the play. Because Wilder even said, like, when someone bought the rights to the play in the script form, he said, here's the play. I spent all this money, and Wilder just said, great, we'll use it as a doorstop. So, I mean, I'm kind of curious to go back to that source material. I'm wondering, is there a whole nother version? I'm not saying it's going to surpass Wilder and Monroe, but I'm curious, is it different enough in a time where we rehash and release sequels of so many things? What is this other take?
I've got a tough question for you, Russell, but it's kind of in responses. Do you think Woody Allen could write, direct, and cast someone to be in this neurotic lead role that wasn't him? And second, is there anybody in the last 25 years with the way that masculine roles and masculine leads have been presented? Is there space today to make a character with a male lead who isn't a muscular, jacked hero?
I want my head, because we just covered Midnight in Paris, which is a Woody Allen movie, in which case the Woody Allen character, which he writes for himself, Owen Wilson nailed it so well.
Yeah, he did.
I mean,
15 years is a long time, though.
Yeah, he's too old to do this now. Tom Ewell and Marilyn Monroe are actually too old to do this too.
I'm saying the landscape of what audiences want. Do
Okay.
mid 2020s audiences want want this retelling, or were we lucky to get it when we got it?
Well, I don't.
I think maybe we want to believe. I'm
I
just
think we
not sure
do.
if
I think we
Hollywood does.
do. I think we also got to remember too. Like Monroe is supposed to be 28, or sorry, 22. She's 28, and even more pronounced. Ewell is 45, and he's playing a
Yeah.
character that's 38. He
His
even
wife
talks.
is turning 31, but the actress playing her is 39.
Yes.
39 to 31 in the 1950s is a huge difference compared to now.
Yeah. So I am sitting here thinking, we're talking about Owen Wilson and these more mature actors that may be more in line with what we see Tom Ewell as playing. The characters are supposed to be a lot younger than that. And I don't know, again, I'm not in the casting chair. I don't know, DJ. I really haven't put a lot of thought into this. Would you want this remade? Do you want this other version? Because I kind of want both.
I mean, again, I want to see it, but I want to see Billy Wilder's version. I don't know that I want to see a modern retake on it, because I think that in order to update this now, you have so much more baggage to unpack now with infidelity and marriages that, in my more simplistic brain and mind, I don't want that.
You don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, I don't want to touch it.
Maybe I'm a little bit more living in the 90s still, where I think I can push people's buttons and get away with it, but I don't know. I think what you mentioned, the non sequitur humor game, has stepped up so much. I'm fascinated by The Secret Life of Walter Mitty in a comedy. Like, what are the other funny things how far can we take this imaginative world that he's in? The scene where he talks to his wife about, like, oh yeah, there's women all the time who want me. And like, I mean, it goes so extreme and ridiculous. No woman acts that way towards any man anywhere. I mean, if they acted like he was a beetle. So, I mean, or like, and so that's really funny. And even if it's not this movie, my head's kind of going into, like, from a writing standpoint, maybe it's not the 7-year itch, but I do like that notion of this delusional, sad, out of touch man, in his own neurotic mind,
I want to focus on the comedy of that.
Yeah.
But just for the sake of completeness, this is where, if you were to look at it, 70 years later, you were to look at it and say, all of his fantasies, all of these things about him just sort of being, just because he's a man, just being this desirable person that turns the women around him into, fawning slaves to his masculinity. That's where you could say, boy, this is really something that doesn't hold up. And you could really even say, like, does he even think of women anything more than objects? I say that out loud, is that I think I can see how someone could say, yuck, that concept gives me the ick. Yuck, I don't want to play in this world where this guy thinks of women like that. Once again, I can turn the dial. But do you guys see what I'm talking about? How a modern viewer might say, I don't like this at all. I can't get past it. I can't see the humor there because of it.
It's possible, and this might be why we don't have very many comedies being released today. So, which is a separate conversation. It makes me sad. But yeah. Musically, I also want to point out the moment I love the moment where he's having another one of his, like, fantasies where he plays Rachmaninoff, and like,
Yes.
it goes so smoothly. He pictures himself as, again, it's this moment of a complete out of touch. I'm this real Romeo character that I'll play Rachmaninoff and she'll be putty in my hands. Yes, sir. And it just doesn't connect and then they end up playing chopsticks. And I felt like I was watching Singing in the Rain, where it's just like, this is a whole heck of a lot of fun. Like, they're sitting there giggling and they look like they're having fun making it. And given what his expectations were as to what the way things went, there's this second watch that is fun, that you sit there and you can relish in reality versus fantasy. And that's where I say there's actually more comedy to mine within this. Not that Wilder did a bad job at all, but I want to have those juxtapositions between what is not real and not what is fake, there's a lot of fun to be played with from a writing standpoint there. So again, maybe I don't want to remake this, but I'm certainly inspired by this to do something. How about we hand out some awards, you guys?
Oh God, this is gonna be hard.
I'm ready.
MVP DJ.
Who do you think I'm gonna say?
It's got to be Marilyn, right? I mean,
It's gonna be Marilyn. It's gonna be Marilyn.
Yeah. Dustin, are you going to venture down a brave path to be different?
What other chance would we have to give it to Tom Ewell? I mean, it might be unfair.
You can just give him a shout out. I think we've fairly complimented. We said we would pick him over Gary Cooper and Jimmy Stewart and William Holt. That's pretty high praise.
I think that the way that I had described how maybe modern audiences wouldn't want a male lead with these neuroses, it's enough for a 10 episode season on the CW or on ABC, for a non primetime TV show on a Monday night. But as far as a big time movie, no, I just don't think we have that anymore. So when we get these gems, these pearls from back in the day, I think Marilyn Monroe has enough cultural and societal awards. I'm giving my MVP to Tom Ewell.
Whoa. Oh, he does. I like it. This is why we have 3 people on the show, so somebody can be different for us. So, wow. The road less traveled. Best supporting actor, DJ.
I'm gonna go Evelyn Keyes, Helen Sherman, because I think that the imagination scenes we get from her, specifically the one with the gun shooting through the apartment door, I thought was hilarious.
Yes.
I was laughing so hard. So I'm gonna give it to her.
I wanted more of her popping
more of
into
that.
it. I just wanted more of maybe just a quick little open the refrigerator and pretend that she's there in his mind, and he drops the eggs on the floor and he goes, ah, and then he she's not there, again, I want to go more Walter Mitty with this. So he's said to have an active imagination. I love that, and she was funny. Dustin, best supporting.
I mentioned him earlier, Victor Moore as Mr. Krahulik. When he shows up, he's so
gross.
funny.
He's gross in a good way.
He's gross in a good way. I love it, and it is a caricature, and that can be forgiven. It's so funny when he's on screen.
I mentioned her earlier as well, so my best supporting is going to go to Carolyn Jones, who is Miss Finch, the nurse. Nurse Finch is actually played by the auburn-haired Carolyn Jones, and she is an accomplished actress in her own right. She is Morticia from the TV series The Addams Family. So she is
my first love.
Yes. So she's awesome for one. And for two, these fantasies of these women who are this is like Kristen Wiig on Saturday Night Live, physical humor. She's grabbing onto him in a way that she's putting it all out there. And this is done in a time when women don't get to do stuff like this in a comedy necessarily. She's physically really funny. And, oh my gosh, she's holding on to him again, he's Elvis or something like that. And he's just sitting there looking off into space. This happens to me all the time. Oh, really? There really are ethics you have to stand to. Come on.
And the bed alarm, it's this outrageous siren.
That's right. Yeah.
It's 8 people come in there to take one woman away from this dude in a medical bed. I mean, again, this absurdity has me laughing out loud when I'm watching in a room by myself. And this movie doesn't necessarily go there often enough, but Miss Finch sure was great. I mean, so my best supporting, very small scene. Could have even been a hidden gem, but I'm going to elevate her to best supporting. Speaking of hidden gem, DJ, what is your hidden gem?
I like the waitress from the vegan restaurant. She was fun.
Weird. She's
so weird.
She's like clothes are the enemy. Why is this nudist waitress inserted in here? I don't know, but I love it.
And reciting the calories in 1955, we had to wait till 2020 to get that on the menu.
Exactly, I know. And the sauerkraut cocktail, the things that were on there, I felt like we stepped into. Remember when we all covered Little Shop of Horrors together, which was a really fun episode, and I like that. But we also talked about the old Little Shop of Horrors, but these really eccentric people who came in and out. This woman felt like she was out of that, like Little Shop of Horrors old movie, and that's a good thing. I'm saying that in a nice way. I'm just who is why? And that's that Family Guy thing of just like, sure, we're doing this now, and it's funny. So, love the pick. Dustin, hidden gem.
I've mentioned it before. I love written red gags in movies. Whether it's somebody with a funny headline on a newspaper or a funny sign on a door that like you have, the shot is on it so that you can read it and chuckle to yourself. And so in this movie, we get several instances of that. The idea that he works at a publisher where they have to like soup up the title of an old classic to make it sellable. Little Women becomes The Secrets of a Girl's Dormitory. That's very funny to me. But you have to pay attention because it's not said out loud. So you have to read it yourself. We mentioned the vegetarian restaurant, right? On the walls, dandelion salad with mineral oil dressing. Another sign, 27 flavors of yogurt. Another sign, for a real thrill, try our spinach loaf. Prime ribs of celery. It's a safe other. The nudist waiter in the diner, the vegetarian being weird or out there. It's like a completely safe other population where, when I say safe, it's like marginalized, but not oppressed. Like vegetarians are marginalized, but not oppressed. I mean, I'm in Texas. Everyone's oppressed. But the idea is that like it was a safe group of people to poke fun at because it was really a little bit just poking fun. It wasn't trying to hurt. So those written gags, I'm always a fan. So that's my hidden gem.
It lumps up and makes it more ridiculous, but he's supposed to be healthy and watch what he's drinking and smoking too. So it builds up to, it's consistent, but like it's just, again, taken to the point of absurdity. I love it. I love absurdity when you just exaggerate like that. So my hidden gem is definitely got to be textures. You can see 3 different kinds of texture: the driftwood, the sand, and me. And again, it just got such a laugh out of me later when he's trying to explain, like he's all highbrow. It's like, see, they call it textures because there's driftwood, the sand, and her. Like, just,
even the doctor, the psychiatrist, is like, "Oh, I like the driftwood. That's a very unique form of driftwood."
I know. I know that it was just, they got so much mileage out of that for me. So that was my hidden gem. Shout out to the Chopsticks song because it's chopsticks and it's the most basic, simple little thing. And how fun was that? So they milked that too. Recast. It's going to be hard. Maybe you can go, you can take the coward's path line. And I might do the same of, you might not want to touch the top 2 actors, but DJ, if you had to recast somebody in this and put somebody else in their place, who's it going to be?
If we did modernize this, I threw Tobey Maguire in as Richard.
Okay.
Yes, I could see that.
Yeah, I could too. That's a good choice.
The thing that kind of stinks though is I could see that as Tobey Maguire 20 years ago.
Maybe
is that our Richard is played by a 40-something-year-old, and I guess I didn't think about that they're supposed to be younger.
They're supposed to be, but they're not. And sometimes we have this thing where we always say people in the 50s just look older than they are. You sit there and be like, early Bond, you're like, Sean Connery's this age, you're just like, wow, you look kind of old. You're like a sex symbol or whatever, and you kind of look old. So, it happens. Things will age you faster. They lived hard back then. Recast. Dustin.
Well, we talked about remakes, and I do this quite frequently when we go beyond the 70s, is that it's hard for me to choose other actors of the time. So if I were to do that today, I found an uncanny resemblance to Michael Sheen, but I don't want Michael Sheen in that role. I was thinking it would be fun to do Tom Holland, who's younger.
Oh,
I think he could do that. I think someone who's probably on the edge of too old for it, but is a very good modern neurotic character, Charlie Day, could do the neuroses.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he could be convincing of having a normal job. And I think the girl, I don't know anything about this girl. Okay. She just shows up on social media. The girl I can think could be Sabrina Carpenter.
Okay, that's a big name right now.
Big
So,
pop star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My recast, I'm going after Tom McKenzie. This is the guy who comes in at the end and he gets hit and punched at the end, which is absurd because he didn't really do anything that wrong. It was just
All in his head.
all in his mind. All in his mind. Gene Kelly would have been fun. I'd like to get somebody more handsome and more talented in there. Kind of a fun cameo. And furthermore, because it's Gene Kelly, I'm going to add a fun daydreaming scene where he's insecure about what is his wife doing with this handsome Gene Kelly character who's like, it's like, yeah, he carried it, and I want to make a big deal about like, oh yeah, I'm like, wow, you're really good at carrying that guy, that kind of thing, like in his head. So I say steer into his insecurity about what his wife is up to as well, more with that. So best shot, DJ.
This one's hard because I don't really have like a best shot from like a technicality perspective. I mean, obviously there's the dress shot, which is iconic for this film.
There's a 52-foot sign in Times Square of that.
Yeah, but that I don't get much there. Ask me about best scene next. I have one for that.
Okay, I'll ask you this then. Do you like that it's color? Because the studio made Billy Wilder preferred black and white, as we got with Some Like It Hot. Did you like the choice that the studio said, it's Marilyn Monroe, it's going to be in color?
I do like that it was in color because, again, I think it is a lot more vibrant because of that. We can appreciate a lot more of the settings and the depth of them a little bit more. And there's not a lot here, so we need more depth to appreciate for the apartment specifically, but also other locations that we see in and around New York City.
Yeah. All right. Then, Dustin, how about you? Best shot.
Well, it was when you're watching this movie for the first time, I think the first shot that kind of knocks your socks off is when she shows up in the apartment building in the polka dot dress, which I'll go on and say I think that's more eye-popping than the one that's, the most iconic dress in movie history is less than that to me. But then there's this also, it's this kind of warm scene, which that's not meant to be a play on words, where she props her feet up in front of the air conditioning in the second night of the apartment. She's talking out loud, but she's actually talking to herself, and it's actually supposed to be in the mind, and this is for the audience, like a stage show. He's talking out loud, but it's actually to himself, and it's meant to be like his train of thought. He's making the Tom Collinses over there. And she's got her feet up in front of the air conditioner. I think she just says like, oh, this is the most. And it's just like, this is kind of all this girl wants, just to not be sweltering hot. And like the very real need compared to like the glamour that Marilyn Monroe carries. That was a just sort of a mentally impactful juxtaposition. I still think she shows up in that polka dot dress. Wow.
I thought this was going to be a clean sweep. I have to say the best shot is the iconic, sidewalk grate. I mean, it's what you think of. It's just like you just think of these lost images of all these iconic people who died way too young. That's hers. And so, I mean, that's from this movie. That's a reason enough to watch it. On the other hand, I'm going to go ahead and point out, I like the perspective at the terrace. When the pot plant almost falls on him, and he looks up angry, like, hey, what's going on? You almost killed me. What's the deal? And oh, it's you. And like the perspective of not being able to see her over the plants. And she announces that I put my underwear in the icebox.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, it's like, and it's just laying it on even thicker of like, like, and you're watching him like, again, this is exaggeration. Every attractive person seemingly gets preferential treatment as they move through life. But you just see it dialed up to 10 and it's really funny. And that terrace of him looking up like this heavenly figure, like with the clouds parting, like kind of thing. It's good. It's a good framing and good use of the camera.
Really good framing. It's also like, it's just towing the line of what is like acceptable. Is that like, honey, she's naked in this scene. That is, it's middle of 50s. Like we're playing with, we're towing the line. I love that.
Yeah, it's not Austin Powers with the pinwheels of, like hiding.
An underrated gag through history. An underrated Hollywood gag are those Austin Powers scenes. Those are really good.
Oversized lollipop moving towards the baby buggy.
They're good.
Right. DJ, you asked for it. Here's the best scene.
Yeah, best scene. I love the early scene in Penn Station because Penn Station no longer exists to us now. It was demolished in the 60s. And this is one of the last kind of color shots we get of it before its ultimate demise. And so as a time capsule for New York City and train culture, I think that is a very beautiful scene.
Bravo. I know you're a fan of architecture and trains. This does a lot for you, and I can see why you picked that one for sure. Dustin, how about you? Best scene?
Well, the first night in the apartment is one 45-minute long scene, which is wonderful. But I think, and normally I give credit to long scenes in one place. For me, it's the fantasy scene, the one where he's worried about how his family and the world find out about his infidelity, which is broadcast over the TV screen. And they've got a TV right by like the pond where they're like swimming. And she interrupts her Dazzle Dent commercial to say about how bad Richard Sherman is. And it's the line delivery of, and he makes them sit on a piano bench and he makes them play chopsticks.
That's
and then
so
he
good.
turns on them, eyes bulging, mouth frothing, like the creature from the Black Lagoon. And they say it so many times. And he says it and she says it. It's so funny.
Yes, the
really
repetition
well
of
done.
that is. I'm grinning ear to ear on this one. That makes me so happy. I like your choice there. I alluded to it earlier with my best supporting actor being Nurse Finch of Carolyn Jones, but all three of the women throw themselves at me all the time, kind of like it was just so out of touch. Talking to his wife, and she's sitting there, kind of getting a good kick out of it in his mind, even sitting there going like he's like, yes, sir. And they're like the secretary scene was also really funny too, of like, I'm a woman, I have needs, and like yelling at him.
Right.
And him turning her down.
Ripping off her clothes like with the exposed bodice. Once again, I'm going, wow, we're going risque for this time. But yeah, it's so funny.
Again, the absurdity and the exaggeration. Love it. Best wardrobe or makeup moment, DJ.
I'm going to go with that polka dot dress because I think that is the best costume piece in this entire thing. I love it. It is beautiful.
Wow. Okay. And I think, Justin, did you tip your hand earlier? You're going to follow suit with DJ, right? The black polka dots on the white dress when she makes her entrance into the movie?
It's a curveball. Is I even mentioned that's the sexiest dress, but my pick is the second dress, is the one for the long scene where she comes in and she has just changed out of the matador pants, like her pajama style clothing. And she's got that dress that has the straps, and like it's important because she needs him to like do them up in the back. That is, I mean, I've brought it up on the show before. Like sometimes it's hotter when you don't touch, but in this instance, like, we're in this very sensitive first hour, and like, I need you to touch me here. It's such a like scene setter, and it's gorgeous as well. So while I agree, the best dress is the polka dot dress, the best wardrobe moment comes from that dress she wears in that first night, that white silver sequin dress.
And both of them have similar lines and similar collar lines as well. So yeah, I get that.
Well, I am actually going to follow suit with what DJ said. I was also quite captivated by the original dress that she walks on with the black dots. And I guess if we were in an auction, we would come away with a great value because the iconic dress sold for $4.6 million. Rising to 5.5 with taxes included, which quintupled the most expensive piece of wardrobe previously, which was under $1 million at $923,000 for Audrey Hepburn's little black dress from Breakfast at Tiffany's. So if you wanted to buy the iconic dress, you better have at least $6 million on hand. And that was in 2011. So pre massive inflation. So I don't know, you might need more than that now. So that is one expensive dress.
Yeah,
So.
I'll really need to adjust some things in my portfolio for this.
Change one thing. DJ. Are you going to the
This is
Native
always the hardest
Americans?
part for me. Yeah, let's maybe remove them. Like that doesn't hold up well. I mean, I get it for what it was in the 50s.
What about it going caveman? Would you be okay going caveman?
Yeah, I could do caveman.
Okay.
It seems a little less offensive.
Yeah, I mean, you can poke fun at cavemen. That's one last little demographic we can make fun of. So, Dustin, change one thing.
Every short scene, every fantasy, every vignette is really good. Every single one. And I think there's a perfect amount of them. But maybe if we replace one with something else, this is my change one thing, is you could see like Mr. Brady, his boss, and Mr. Krahulik out on the town together with these summer girlfriends on their arms. Like they don't belong together in the real world, but during this summer haze of male fantasy, like we're going out while the getting's good, that you see those two guys like gambling together or drinking together. See them as the bad influences that Richard Sherman has to push away. Or maybe he sees himself like hanging out with them and he's got a girl on his arm and that's like a nightmare to him and it scares him that I'm like my boss or I'm like the building plumber that like I need to, that scares him and I need to get away from that. Those characters were so great in their brief amount of times that I'd like to see them in one more.
There were a lot of good side characters. I see moments where you could just keep adding more funny, weird waiters or his boss is a funny character and things like that too. So everybody they bring in is worth their weight in gold, I think, even though it's a small cast. I think I want to make a big change. I kind of think the movie ends abruptly, where he just gets the paddle and he leaves. I kind of like the idea that for some reason, either she has to come home for some reason, and he has actually said like, you got to go home. Like he has that conscious kick in and say, I'm going to be with my wife. And then she comes home and he actually got away with it. You know what I mean? Like, and then he has a conscious, he tells her and she doesn't believe him. She's just like, oh, that's nice, Richard. And then maybe the next day she's on her way out. She bumps into Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe is like, you got a good one there. So I like the idea of maybe even taking the kiss away. And I think you mentioned it's hotter when they don't touch sometimes, going right up to the edge of could they or not. Like maybe he does try and make a move on the piano bench and then she doesn't want it at that point, but then later she wants him. And then that's when he has the conscious thing. I think that there's that moment of, and maybe I'm turning this into hall pass here at the end also, of just, you know, making him grateful for what he didn't do, which is why I say this cleaned up 1955 version actually holds a lot of heartwarming potential in there. And, you know, I guess Marilyn Monroe's heart gets a little bit broken by doing this, but at the same time, I think it just makes everybody a little more likable, possibly. Maybe it goes down better for Chad also. So big change. That's a big change.
Yeah. Having her come home is almost what I was expecting.
Okay.
So that doesn't happen was an ice cube in the white wine. Like it was refreshing.
Punching out Tom McKenzie is pretty good, by the way.
Yeah. But I see what you're saying. But I like that when a movie that's 70 years old zags you because that hasn't become the norm. I think the high stress level of the partner catching you has become the norm in movies. Now I just sound like I'm trying to say you're wrong. I'm not. I like what you said.
The movie has a lot of clout. So, I mean, big changes are probably not needed. So, DJ, best quote.
Nudism is such a worthy cause. We must bring the message to the people. We must teach them to unmask their poor, suffocating bodies and let them breathe again. Clothes are the enemy. Without clothes, there'd be no sickness and no war. I ask you, sir, can you imagine two great armies on the battlefield, no uniforms, completely nude, no way of telling friend from foe, all brothers together?
So good. All right, I love it. Dustin, how about you? Best quote.
Oh, I wish I was dead. I didn't quite understand the situation. Moths, let them eat the rugs, let them eat the curtains. Summertime and the living is easy. Fish are jumping and the cotton is high.
Well delivered. Well delivered. Um, I think you touched the line on this one really close for me, Dustin. So when Richard says, I'm in big trouble. I know girls like this. They just can't keep their big mouths shut. It's going to be all over New York. I bet right this minute. She's telling somebody about it. Yada, yada, yada. And then it like goes into her, like a cut to the Marilyn Monroe sitting there with his imagination waves. And so he lured me down to his apartment and he made me sit on this piano bench. And then he made me play chopsticks. Suddenly turned to me, eyes bulging. He was frothing from the mouth, just like the creature from the Black Lagoon. I knew it. I knew it. This is how these stories get started. Big blabbermouth. So, just so absurd. I also like the, amusingly that he said, this is actually from the play, and they kept it in here. And he's like, yeah, and I've got Marilyn Monroe in the kitchen.
Yeah.
That's extremely funny because it has Marilyn in it, even though Marilyn wasn't in the play and it was written for Marilyn Monroe. DJ, we've come full circle. On a 5-star scale with half-star intervals, what are you giving? It's the 7-Year Itch from 1955.
I'm going to do 3.5 stars.
That forced second watch made you pause.
It made me pause. It also helped.
Yeah. So I'm taking it this might have gone down for you from when you came back to it 20 years ago.
Yeah. When I recollect watching this 20 years ago, I held it in such high regard. And not that I don't now. I mean, I think it's just the aging of things and also my evolution as a moviegoer and viewer has changed. And so I expect more and I want more. But at the same time, I can recognize this as for what it was in its time and in its heyday.
Mm-hmm. So if you were making your own top 100 movies, either just personally or, somebody said, DJ, I've tasked you with the top 100 funniest movies, would you put it on there?
If I get 100, yes, it would definitely rank somewhere in there.
Okay. Yeah.
Dustin, that question was for DJ, but I think the higher ranking number is funniest archetype or like funniest characters, because there's only so many like Seth Rogen stoners or like hypersexed friends in comedies. There aren't that many Richard Shermans.
Yeah,
that's yeah.
Mm-hmm. Dustin, how about you? What are you going to give this movie?
Well, guys. I held this movie, my both watchings. They just laugh riot. Russell, you and I don't always agree on comedies. And I had such a fun time. I mentioned the ability for me to be able to like turn my dial, to be able to like get into this world. Is it a satire? Is it okay that it's being presented the way that it is? Is there too much that is dated to it? And I don't know what it was about those 2 days that I watched this movie, but my dial was tuned in. Not only am I giving this a 5-star rating, but this is the highest 5-star I've given to a pre-70s movie I've never seen before on my history of the show. It was that enjoyable for me. Now, in 20 more years, do I go through an evolution saying like, what could I have expected? Maybe. But for when we cover movies before the 70s, generally I reserve those high rankings for dramas because that's what they do well. But as far as a comedy, this really nailed it. 5 stars.
I love how much you love it. It makes me so happy. I'm coming between you guys. I'm at a 4. I think I said too many times tonight, I like that. I want to do more. Or I like that thing, steer into that thing. Or wouldn't this also be funny if you did this thing? Or maybe I want to learn the lesson a little bit more, have a little more heart in it, or whatever. I need more of the wife in that. Or there's a lot of these things, which means The reason I said the remake is a possibility is the bones of this and the writing is excellent. I like the notion of the character, and if you can have Marilyn, that's the difficult thing. You can't; those are not easy shoes to fill. Clearly, it's a very expensive dress to fill, but that this movie is in premise so good. Its execution is good. It gets by a lot on the charisma of its 2 stars, but I feel like whether it be from the code or whether it just be from just steering into those tangents and his imagination, I really wanted to go a little deeper into his imagination. They could be for short moments. And I'm not saying that Secret Life of Walter Mitty was an amazing movie when we covered it, the Ben Stiller one, which we did cover. I'm saying that in an imaginative mind, there's a huge world, and this notion of not wanting to get caught, of his fantasies and stuff like that. That's a really funny playground to be in. So I think there might be potential to go even more. So that's what I'm going for. But I really enjoyed it, and I had a blast talking about it with you guys. And it's a very fun movie, and I would definitely tell people to watch it. I don't know that it would make my top 100 comedies movies, but if you're being, as the AFI has to do it, if you have to then say that this is the most Marilyn movie that there is, it probably does make it just from that. It is a moment of film history that you can't ignore. So is it actually one of my top 100 funniest movies? Maybe not, but it sure is fun. I'm glad we covered it. Dustin, do you want to help me pick a movie for next time?
Well, we are hitching our wagons up and headed to the Wild West in the 1960s. Yes, Western's popularity peaked in the 50s. They were still loved in the 60s. Here are 3 60s Westerns for you. Option number 1, Heaven with a Gun from 1969. In a frontier town, gunslinger turned preacher Jim Killian is caught in the middle of a violent range war between cattlemen and sheepmen. Option number 2, Hombre from 1967. John Russell, disdained by his respectable fellow stagecoach passengers because he was raised by Apaches, becomes their only hope for survival when they are set upon by outlaws. Or option number 3, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance from 1962. A senator returns to a western town for the funeral of an old friend, tells the story of his origins. What's it going to be, partner?
I have to say, Westerns are one of the genres where I've seen so very little of, and I probably need the most schooling and catching up. So all of these will be new to me, but I know Jimmy Stewart is in this with John Wayne, which seems like an impossible combination having not seen this. So The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance from 1962. I'm curious to see what we've got here.
Me too. I'm glad you picked it. I'm curious about that.
DJ, thank you so much for coming in and saving the day, I might add.
Thank you all so much. Always a pleasure to be here. Call me anytime.
All right. And thank you all the lords, ladies, and knights of the Retro Movie Roundtable. We invite you to reach out to us. We want to hear from you. So subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Pandora, wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at @movie_retro. And email us at retromovieroundtable@yahoo.com. Producing and providing this podcast is fun, but not free. So we invite you to support our show at Patreon at www.patreon.com/Retro Movie Roundtable. All contributions are much appreciated and will go towards making the show better for you, the listeners. As always, thank you for listening. Be good to each other and watch more movies. Dustin?
Why are you wearing that stupid man suit?